My name's Phil Eglin. I make things in clay and I live and work in Stoke-on-Trent. I never start off having the idea completely worked out, and invariably the pieces have historical precedence. There's so much that we can learn from history, and I've always enjoyed visiting the V&A. I saw a book by Paul Williamson called Northern Gothic Wood Carvings. I bought the book, wanted to go and see the things in the flesh, went to the museum, found they weren't on display, and that then had got my back up and encouraged me to then make contact via the ceramics department to be able to go and study these wood carvings. And this was before I was interested in using religious figures as a sort of a vehicle to make things from. There were photographs, a sequence of photographs of the backs and the fronts of these objects, and I was fascinated by the backs. These things were sort of left rough hewn because they weren't going to be seen, because they were going to be sat in niches within a church. Ultimately, the intention was that my own pieces would be shown alongside these wood carvings within the museum, and that was really exciting to see whether my pieces would hold up, would stand up against what are wonderful, incredible icons that have really survived the test of time. A lot of the medieval figures, especially the wood carvings and the ones that I was most interested in, tended to have quite short legs and then a long body. I'm very much trying to pick up on the sort of proportions, not to copy them, but to echo the spirit of those figures. Through drawing, your looking is more focused. Armed with the drawings and armed with the memory of handling those things, I then began to think about using some subversive imagery, and I started to play with ideas of reverence and irreverence. Clay itself, it has this ability to mimic the characteristics and properties of other materials. The bits that are modelled are the hands and the faces. The sort of details of clothing have come from numerous sources of packaging. Her skirt area has come from a tray that held cream cakes. Her shoulders have come from pouring plaster into a milk carton and then pressing onto the model to form a detail that maybe in some way relates to a sort of detail that you might find on an historical costume. But interestingly, these details should give clues as to where these things have come from. From actually doing the drawings and observing and handling the pieces were held within a museum, and that's come full circle, and I've now been able to both exhibit my work and my drawings alongside the pieces that they've been influenced by and that they came from and that I studied, and that's been an invaluable process for me. Hopefully it allowed people to see the connections and also to see that I then moved things on, that they weren't just copies. Maybe there were other questions that were in there that, as well as being religious in subject, they were also very contemporary. So they were sort of took on the spirit of something that was medieval, but with a sort of contemporary twist.